Welcome to the treasure room.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Prepare for vault door opening.
Well, here we are again, everybody. Welcome to Vault 45. We are back again with a bonus stream that I promised you for the one last wave or other projects. The other one, the Machine Raise fundraising project, the Giga PC. And this is going to be Blender, everybody. That's right. We're going to pull in Blender over here and pull you all in over there. Put a 1 in the chat if you can see and hear me, so I know everything's working well. We're streaming live across 4 different platforms. That's right, streaming on the Twitch, the YouTube, the Kick, and over there on Facebook. Now, today is going to be a special stream, everybody. This is one where we go a kind of bit above and beyond. I share my 30 years worth of graphic design and 3D animation knowledge. We're just going to learn about the basics of it. Now, you guys can actually follow along on your end because we're going to be using Blender. Blender's a free program and actually quite a good one, by the way. I have another program called Maya, which is about $4,000 that I bought a while ago. And this one, actually, I like more. And this one is free. You got to utilize the power of free, everybody. The power of free is quite awesome. There's also a bunch of other programs that we talked about last time we did a bonus stream here. Graphic design programs that you can use, like GIMP and things like that. Like I still got them down in my little bar down there at the bottom. But programs like that you can use instead of like Photoshop and stuff like that if you can't afford them. Now, of course, I've had Photoshop and Illustrator forever, everybody, since they began way back in the day, almost 40 years ago. Back in 1988. I think it's more like 30 years ago. But you get the general idea. Now, don't forget to go out and retweet everybody. Oh, did I put it in the thing? I don't think I put it in the right thing. Now, think about it. Hold on a second. Let me go put it in the thing. Over here. It used to automatically do this, and I gotta manually do it every time. But such is the way it goes. All right, let's fix that. Let's put that like that, and there we go. Remember, those retweets do help a lot. Hit that like button, hit that retweet button. Appreciate it. Big time. Big time. Now, we're going to talk about the basics of animation, how to get started in animation. We'll also have a little recap on how to move stuff around like we did last time. If you missed my previous stream, it's on my VOD. You can go back and watch it about the basics of 3D, about how to make items and adjust items and how to use the tools and how to move and rotate and scale things. We'll talk a little bit about that just so if you are getting started, you can at least know how to move stuff around, which is very important. And then, of course, how to set keyframes, how to adjust those keyframes, all that kind of fun stuff. We're going to get all of that in tonight. But before we get into that, we're just going to go for a few hours as well, have some fun with that. We're going to go ahead and say hello to everybody in the chat. We got Rotisserie G showing up right there. Thank you, Rotisserie G. Appreciate you being here in the stream. We got Paul coming in. What up, Paul? Thank you very much. Jaden, thank you very much for that one in the chat. 1,000 Kids Caps for the whole chat. For future giveaways, I got a ton of them to do. We're coming up on December. We're going to be doing our St. Jude Children's Hospital fundraiser again. Research Hospital. We're going to be doing that again. We're going to be more mellow than it was last year. I've been having lots of breathing problems and issues. Oh, speaking of, I should take my allergy thing again. Hold on. Take my allergy pill today. Supposed to take these how often? I don't know. I can't read it. The text is too small. Wow, my eyes are getting really bad. I can't read it. I think it's one every 24 hours. All right. All right. I'm going to take my allergy pill. I forgot to take it yesterday. Yeah, getting to the point where it's really scary. Everybody, like emergency room scary stuff. That kind of level of not being able to breathe. All right, who else? Rotisserie G, thanks for the one. Wits coming in. What's up, Wits? Thanks for checking out the chat or checking out the stream. Appreciate you. Big Tom Wombat coming in with that hype. Oh, he's a little sad and he's got hype at the same time. It's like the two opposites. Luckily, there's more hype than there is sadness. There we go. Wits are also over there on Kick. Thank you very much for that one. Appreciate that. Big time over there. And we're going to get into it, everybody. We're going to get right into it. So let's dive right in and learn some 3D animation in Blender. Let's go. I'm a very much go right to it kind of person, everybody. Like, let's get into it. Okay, so here we are in Blender. Now, there are some things that you need to know about Blender here. First, I pulled this thing up here at the bottom. Now, this is your animation bar, also known as the dope sheet. So it's pretty dope. And of course, you pull that up, and this is where we're going to be working our animations down here. We can work into individual parts of the animation or just the overall animation. Obviously, we've got an angled view up here. And so we can able to click on things. We've got a cube over here. We've got the camera. And then up here, we have a light, right? So those are your three basics that you need. When you open a Blender file, it'll automatically give you those three things. Now you can take them out, readjust them, do whatever you want to do. But it's going to start you off with those things. And we're just going to start with just the most basic stuff just to get you guys going. Now, some of the things that we do want to look at is we want to look at what's going on down here, because we're going to adjust this later. What's going on up here in this corner, and then also over here in the right side, which is our object view. Now, if you guys remember from last time, we're going to start with some basic movement stuff. So you hit G to move stuff, right? So just G, and now you can move that object. And of course, you need to roll over the object or have the object selected. Now, if I roll over this object, hit G, see, it doesn't move the camera. I have to click on the camera, then G. There we go. Whatever I have highlighted is the one that it's going to move. That's very important in there. Now, if I hit G on this thing, I can move it, but I'm kind of free moving it. What if I wanted to move it along the X axis? So we hit G, we can move it, and we select it first. So select, and then G, and then we hit X. Now, X is going to allow you to slide it along the X axis, right? And then, of course, Y is the green one going away, and you can probably guess which one's Z, right? And it's Z. And then now you're going up and down, right? So width, length, and then height going on with all of those, or better known as X, Y, Z. Now, some 3D programs, the up direction is actually Y. In Blender, it is Z. You can change it to whatever your heart's content is. Now, I'm going to hit Escape, and it's going to go back to where it was before. So again, now what we want to do is we want to take this box, and we want to move it along this edge, right? Just something super simple. We want it to animate across the thing. Now, this is also called in-betweening. Now, if you've ever known a traditional animation, it's always good to know where this stuff comes from, everybody. So I don't just give you the hows. I give you the why you're doing it in the first place and how it started and all of that stuff, which I think is much more important than learning all the little tools of Blender or all the tools, is understanding the concepts. The concepts are vitally important. Once you understand the concepts, it doesn't matter what program you use. You can always find the same tools in different programs, whatever you want to use. But the concept is, you have one animation artist who comes in and he draws what's known as the keyframes, or the frame of the in-between action, right? The main action, right? So if someone's going to grab the ball and throw it, well, he's grabbing the ball. That's the keyframe. And then the throwing of the ball, usually an apprentice comes in and draws the in-between frames. Well, on the computer's going to do those in-between frames for you. You're going to set the key motion. It's going to start here. It's going to end here, right? And then maybe it'll do some stuff in between. But right now we're going to do this. It's going to start here and end here. Actually, it's going to start here and end over here, actually, in the case of, because I'm reversed on your guys' screen. So that's the basics of animation. So we need to know about this screen, and then, of course, our viewer there, and then, of course, our dope sheet down below, or I just call it the animation bar because that's what it used to be called for many, many years. They call it the dope sheet in there. So what we want to do is adjust our views. Now, first thing that we're going to learn about is views in here, right? Because that is something that you're going to need, especially when you're doing animation, because from one angle it might look like one thing, but from another angle it'll look like something else. So it's good to have multiple views. But before we get into that, let's also talk about scaling and rotation. We're going to hit R to rotate the object, right? We can rotate it. And the same thing, we can hit Z to rotate it in the Z direction, X to rotate it on the thing, on the X-axis. Let me zoom in a little bit here. And of course, the way I'm zooming in using the scroll bar, right? And then I hold down Shift and middle mouse button to move. Good to know around your navigation tools. Again, if you want to know more and deeply more about the navigation tools and all of that kind of 3D modeling, I've got another video on that. You can find on my YouTube. I believe it's still on my Twitch as well. My Twitches roll off about 60 days out or 90 days out, I forget. But you can always find on my YouTube because my YouTube keeps all my videos, every single one. I'm one of the few people who are not actually a primary YouTube streamer who puts every single video up there, and I've been doing that for almost a decade now, for a very, very long time. So thousands and thousands of videos that you can find over there. Posture check. Okay, let's do it. Posture check. All right, how we doing? How about a little gun show? A little gun show. Posture check. That's what I should call that. Posture check and gun show. You know what? I'm gonna just for fun. I'm gonna add that posture check and gun show. There we go. That'd be funny if I had like a little sound effect with it. But thank you very much for that reminder. Appreciate it. So there we go. So basically we have our cube. Now what we're going to do is zoom in on our cube. We don't need our camera, our light, or anything like that. And we can actually turn that stuff off so we don't even see it. Over here in our scene collection over here, we can just turn the little eye off. We won't even see it anymore. You can see it's no longer there. If I turn the eyes on, we can now see it. But I find I get rid of things I don't need to see. And so we're going to take this cube and we're going to move it across the screen. Now, before we get into that, we should adjust our views, right? Now, if you take your arrow and you go right down to the corner of one of these windows, you're going to see it turn into a crosshair. Now, that crosshair is trying to tell you, hey, you can drag out a new window like this. So now you got two windows, right? Pretty cool. Now, this window on the right, I'm going to go ahead and adjust it. I'm going to press 1. What does 1 do? 1 gives me a front view. 2 gives me kind of an angle view. 3 gives me a right view, and so on and so forth. Probably one of the most useful ones is number 7, which is the top view, number 1, which is the front view, and of course, number 3, I think it is, number 4, which is kind of an orthographic front view. And of course, those are the ones I probably use the most, number 1 and number 7. So number 1, we're going to look at it from the front view, all right? So we're going to take a look at it from the front view. We can see it also below the x-axis, below the surface plane. Because when you first put a cube in, what it does is it puts it down the center of the cube, and there's like a flat 0, 0, 0 plane level along the X. You'll see what I mean here when we put a plane in and we start fooling around with that later on. But we want to animate this. Now, also, we've got a 3D view, so we can go ahead and just rotate around holding down the middle mouse button and look at how that 3D view is looking. Now, of course, sometimes you'll look at it in this view and you'll do stuff, and then you'll look at it in the 3D view and you're like, whoa, that totally wasn't what I wanted. Now, also, we can adjust this by hitting 0 on your keypad, and it will actually give us the camera view. Now, the camera view is vitally important, right? Now, to zoom in on the camera view, we're just going to go ahead and use our scroll wheel to zoom in, and then we can see it a bit closer. Now, the camera view is your most vital view. Why is that? Well, when you go to animate the actual object and render it out, it's going to render it from the camera view. So all these other views don't make any difference if you don't see it in the camera view. So the camera view is a very, very important view. So we're going to go ahead and just stay in the camera view so we can see that. But we can also, again, just switch out to other views if we need to. But mostly we want to be in the camera view on this side. So I'm hitting 0. You can see it's got the dots. The dots are dead giveaway. And the fact that this is grayed out is telling you that you're looking through that lens of the camera. And we'll talk about animating cameras later on as well. So we've got this box right here. Now what we're going to do is just do a simple animation. We're going to move this box over a little bit, right? And then we're going to adjust it so it actually fits the camera view. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look down here. Down here it says number 1. Now those are the number of frames that you're using, right? Now to do the most basic animation, you need 15 frames. All right. Usually around 15. You can't get away with less, but you can see stuttering and it doesn't look as fluid as you do with 15. Now, most of the time people do 2997, which is a video speed, or 30 frames per second. So if we were to calculate how many seconds we wanted, let's say 3 seconds, and we're doing it at 30 frames per second. I know a little math for you. So 3 seconds, 30 frames per second, 3 times 30, 90. So that's 90 frames. So if we want our animation to be 3 seconds, we would go in and we would say, okay, 90 frames right over here on the right side, right there. And I'll pull up my arrow so you guys can see where I'm doing my thing over here. Oh, unlock. There we go. I'm doing it right there. Right here is where I'm adjusting. For those who can't see it, I don't know if you're on mobile or whatnot. I just changed that from 250 to 90. And again, we have to know the basic concepts. These concepts of time is the most important thing in animation. I just told you the most important thing before we even get started, right? That's the most important part, is to know about time and how many seconds, how many frames per second that you want. And once you know that, you're good. Now, let's do a little bit more math, and I won't do that much more math after this. Let's say that we do 100 frames, just to make the math easy. And it takes us 10 minutes per frame to render, right? So 10 minutes per frame. We have 100 frames. That's 1,000 minutes. And if you don't know how many minutes that is, that's 17 hours worth of rendering. Yes, that's a long time. So that's why having a better machine and a stronger, faster machine, or even a second machine that you can just let it run on, is the key to success when it comes to animation, because it takes so long to render. And that's why they have giant render farms and things like that at like Pixar and places like that, is because that time, the rendering time, is money. All right, so rendering time is money. Remember that. And if you can get away with less frames to do the same animation, or the less frames per second, then that's what you do. Also, when you're doing animation, everybody, if you're never going to see the other side of something, great example, when you say you make a car, right? And you're only going to shoot it from this one side. You don't need to make the wheels on the other side. You don't need to make the door handle. You don't need to make all the stuff on the far side that you never see. It just slows down your animation. It slows down your rendering. It's completely unnecessary. I see people make that mistake over and over and over again. You don't have to do the whole thing if you're only showing one side. Another great example is the architectural fly-throughs. If you're flying the camera through a thing, you don't need to do the whole block and all the buildings next to it and all that stuff if you're going to just do the interior. It just adds to the render time. It adds to the overhead of your getting your job done, right? And that's what it's all about, getting the job done, making that money, or just getting it done because you want to have fun and you want to, be able to go on to the next thing. All right. So that's basically what we're doing now. We're timing the animation to 3 seconds, right? And that's what this bar does down here. Now I can also zoom in on this bar over here. So that it actually reaches all the way across. There we go. Using my scroll wheel. And so now we have frame 1, and over there is frame 90. Now I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, at frame 1, I want it to be right there. But at the end of the animation, in 3 seconds, I want it to be somewhere else. Now if I go ahead and hit, wait, I got to go to number 1 first. Hold on, we'll go to 1. And then if I go back to the first here, and I'm going to make a keyframe. Keyframe is I, like I see you, right? Like this, I, and then it's going to say, what kind of keyframe do you want? Do you want just the location? Are you just going to move it? Do you want just rotation because you're going to rotate it in that spot? Or do you want a combination of location, rotation, and scale, right? The one that most of the time you're going to do is probably location, rotation if you're not going to scale it. Me, I'm going to do location, rotation, and scale so we can do whatever we wanted with it, right? So we can go ahead and do that right there. And if you notice over here that we've got this oddly colored info over here, this is saying that there is a keyframe there. That there is a keyframe, this information is now locked into here, right? Now we could also hit N, like Nancy, and pull up our transform, but you don't really need to. You don't need to use your transform at this point. You can just use your object menu over here. Way easier because it's its own separate dialogue, own separate thing. It's not blocking your view as well. Much easier. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do that again, but now we're going to move the object, right? So we're going to hit G, and then we're going to hit X to move it along the X-axis. You can see it moving along the X-axis. And we're going to put it way out over here where it just kind of basically moves out of the camera view, right? Now, what happens if I don't hit I, right? If I move this right now, it just snapped back to where it was, and you see that the other part is no longer there. That's because, one, I didn't move the timeline. That's going to be your first mistake when you do an animation, everybody. You're going to forget to move the timeline. Very important to move this forward to 90 because this is 1 second and that is 3 seconds or 90 frames later, right? Because it's 30 frames per second. So basically we want it to start, number one, end in 3 seconds at frame 90. So let's try that again. G to move, X to go along the X-axis, and then we're going to move it off screen. There we go. And then once again, I to bring it up, location, rotation, and scale, and you just made an animation. There you go. You are an animator. Congrats. And you're like, Kismet, I don't see it animating. But if you hit spacebar, you just learned animation, everybody. How many minutes in? About 25 minutes in, you just learned animation. Look at that. Hey, Foggy, what's up? I'm hooking you guys up big time over here. And I'm going to show you some of my best stuff on getting started real easy. So again, based on what you're going to do to this is which things you add to it. So if you're just going to rotate it, you add a rotation keyframe. If you're just going to scale it, scale rotate, and so on and so forth. And of course, you're going to do a whole bunch of things to it, which we are. Then you want to do all three. So in this case, we're going to stop. Now, if you notice down here, look at the playhead right down here at the bottom. And you can see it actually going across. So it starts at frame 1 all the way across, all the way to frame 90. That's 3 seconds of animation. Now that feels kind of slow, doesn't it? That's way too slow if we wanted to go zip off the screen, right? Or maybe we want it to go slow. Maybe it's a person walking real slow. It's an old person with a cane, maybe walking really slow, right? So time is now your power. You have the power over time. So you can control how fast this goes. And you're like, well, Kismet, make it faster. All right. I'll go ahead and grab the keyframe from frame 90 over there. And I'm going to drag it over here to frame 30. And I want you to feel. I talk a lot about feeling. When you're doing graphic design, when you're doing 3D, I want you to feel the difference. You ready? Here we go. Oh, it moved both of them. Hold on. My bad. It selected both of them. Okay, that was my bad. All right, let's try that again. I had them both selected. I had this one and that one. It auto-selected both of them. All right, let's try it again. Try it again. Here we go. Does that feel different? We'll do it a couple times. Okay, and then we'll go undo, Command Z. It'll put it, or Control Z, sorry, Control Z. We'll put it back at 90. Now let's feel the difference. That feeling of it is probably the best thing that I can teach you guys, is how it feels. How does your layout feel? How does your images feel? When does it feel too close? Right there, I'll tell you. When does stuff feel too close? When's it too far? When's it got too much distance in between? And the same thing with animation. Does it feel too slow, right? Now remember, depending on your computer's ability to play it back, it may not be playing it back at real time as well. I've got a really nice machine, so my machine is pretty much playing it back at real time. But even when you do this, you will render it out and you will notice that it either feels too fast or too slow or doesn't feel right in there. And so not only do you have to adjust it here, but you have to render it out and then take a sample of how it feels once you've rendered it out as well, right? Because you might be on a slower machine or whatever it is. I suggest that you always start with basic objects before you add the complex objects, and then do the animation. Try to get a gist of what you want for the animation before you put complex objects in there, because the complex objects are going to go much slower and they are going to be harder for the computer to process. So another Kismet tip there on just learning the basics of animation. So you are now an animator. Congrats. You've learned the basics on how to get it from one place to another. Now remember, you're the artist and you're setting the keyframes. And then the computer is drawing in all the frames in between, right? And again, we can make it faster by selecting this one and we can move it forward. You can also, if you have multiple, you can scale them all down, which we're going to do. Now, here's a problem with this particular animation. I'm going to just basically, this is called scrubbing. I'm going to scrub across the animation just to make it go a little faster. And I can see that it's starting here and it's ending out here. What if I wanted to start up off the screen up that way, right? Well, what I would do is I would go to my first frame right there, and then I would go ahead and move it, and then X axis, and I'm watching the camera up here. X, there we go. I'm watching the camera straight up above me here, and I'm going to move it off to where I can't see it, like that. Now look what happened over here on the right side, right over here. Let me get my arrow again to get you guys know where I'm talking about, right over here. It's this one right at the top. And this is something that's really super useful in there, everybody. If you notice, the other ones are yellow, but the one at the top is orange. The one at the top is saying, look, you did something, but you didn't set a keyframe. That's what that orange is telling you. So if you want to set a keyframe, you can just hit I in there, but you can also roll over this, by the way. You can roll over that and just hit I right there, and notice it turned yellow, so it just accepted those new parameters on frame 1. And so if we go in now, and we hit the space bar, guess what? Going clear across the screen. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. So now we can adjust the animation after the fact. And maybe we want this side to just barely go off the screen, right? We don't want it to be so far off the screen that it's just wasting frames. Like right there, it's beyond the rendering window. So the last 7 frames are basically wasted because there is nothing being rendered there. It's just empty, right? So you render 7 frames for nothing. That's not really that useful, everybody. So what we want to do again is fine tune the animation. G, and then X. You can see I'm on frame 90. X, move it back so it's just when it's just off the edge over here. Again, we're looking right there. It's just off the edge of the camera. And then again, we can just move that right there. And actually, you could just kind of do this where it's almost off the end, and then the brain will make up the fact that it's no longer there when it goes back to the other side, because it will loop, as you saw. But I'd like to go off the end myself. This is just the way I like to do. And then we'll click, and then there we go. Now we're not wasting those 7 frames at the end. And then over here, we hit I to accept those changes. Again, you saw it turn orange over there in that bar. And now we have that kind of change in the animation where it starts way up there in the corner and moves its way over here. Very nice. Okay, now another thing that you can do is actually change your views right in the middle when you're working on something. So I can go here to View, and I go Camera, and I can say Active Camera. Now see, I changed that to Active Camera. We can also go over here to View and say, you know what, I want to change this to a different type of view, like zoom in, zoom out, roll left, orbit, whatever, align to certain views. But your viewpoints are your main things, your top, your bottom, your left. So we're going to go front. And so now we've switched our view, front over here, and then, of course, camera view over here. Now, I like when I'm working my camera view is usually my largest view. And the reason why is because you don't want to end up with the problem of it's not in the camera, right? You definitely don't want that to happen. So you always want to have that view, and then leave a little extra so you can see what the animation is outside the frame before it comes into the camera view. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go here to this one, and we're going to tighten up that animation a little bit. So we're going to hit G, And we're going to hit X, and we're going to tighten it up so it's right up against that edge. There we go. So we don't have to waste any keyframes. We hit I to accept that. And now we have a perfect animation that's going in and out of the camera view without any wasted frames, no rendering extra stuff. I'm all about efficiency, everybody. Now, that's cool and everything, but, you know, we probably want to add a little oomph to it, right? A little something, something, right? Now, right in the middle, if we take 90 and we cut it in half, hey, Suri, what's half of 90?
1 divided by 2 times 90 is 45.
Now, I already knew because I already put it on there. Oh, look out, Hillbilly Convoy coming in with the Kismet Love Train. There we go. Blender, haven't used it, but mastered Rhino back in the day. There you go. See, all you have to do is I teach more concepts than actual programs, because you can learn the programs anywhere. You go watch a YouTube video. But concepts are the most important thing. So that's what you get in my stream, everybody. Not just learning Blender. Blender is just one of thousands of programs that you could use, but understanding concepts like not wasting your frames on the edge, not rendering things you don't need to render, how many frames per second do you want, like 30 frames per second is what we're doing. And so we'd have to render 90 frames. And again, if it had took 10 minutes per frame, that'd be 900 minutes. Hey, sorry, what's 900 minutes in hours?
900 minutes is 15 hours.
Yeah, so that'd be 15 hours just to render those 90 if it took 10 minutes each. Now, my machine's not going to take that long. It's going to take seconds, everybody. Seconds per. Now, of course, you know, the more complex your 3D, the more longer it's going to take, right? The more things it has to calculate. So again, we're just learning the basics. Sound almost like a video editing program functionality. Yes, it's very much like that. Very much comes that same kind of thing. You have your in point and you have your out point, right? Or your start keyframe and your in keyframe. That's pretty much it. Now, we can also put a keyframe in the center right here at 45. And so what I want this box to do is I want to come in here, I want to swing out and then swing back and then go across here. All right, now how do we do that? We just simply go and hit G. Now, I'm going to use this one over here because that's the smarter thing to do instead of using the 3D view, though I could definitely do it using my X, Y, and Z lock, but I'm just going to hit G over here, and I'm going to move it in the Y direction like this. There we go. By the way, there's a positive and a negative, by the way. Negative is towards you, and positive is away from you in the Y direction. So we're going to swing this out like that. Now, again, look over here. See how it's orange? That's saying, hey, you didn't hit I. You didn't accept this keyframe. Well, guess what? We're going to roll over it. We're going to hit I. Accepted. Now our animation is different. Notice the keyframe down there. It looks like a little diamond. Keyframe right there on 45. And now our animation is going to be different. See that? And you're always getting a feel for animation. Is it too fast? Is it too slow? That kind of thing. Does it go the way you want it to go? And it's going really smooth right now, all right? So what if we wanted to adjust the smoothness and have fine control over time? Because that's basically what you're controlling here. You're controlling time, not just moving objects, but controlling time is your biggest factor. So I'm going to scroll this up a little bit, bring that up, because we're going to bring up another sheet that is the ultimate control, gives you mastery over time, and that is right here. And that is what's known as your graph editor. Come on, you. Give it to me. Oh, sometimes this thing is a pain. There we go. Graph editor. All right. You're like, Kismet, tons of lines. I don't know what that does. Well, these are animation lines. These are velocity lines, right? How fast something's going, its interaction, that kind of thing. When you have a very curved thing like this, it's very smooth. It's a smooth animation, right? Just very smooth like we see here, where it slides up and it slides over and it comes back, right? Now, if we went in and adjusted this animation again, and let's go ahead and grab this cube right here, and we're going to actually bring this forward in the Y. Now, I'm adjusting it way up there. And then again, say I just select it over there. Then we're going to go to the 91, and we're going to bring this one forward on the Y direction, and then a little bit on the X direction and get it like this. Now, what I'm doing is I'm moving it toward me. If you look over here, we'll go ahead and replace those keyframes. If you look over here, you can see that that it is actually moving outward. Now, you can't really see it up here. You can see it over there that it's moving outward, But up here, this is the front view. So if you look at it, you think it's just going across, right? And that's the thing I was talking about earlier. See how it looks like it's just going across from one side to the other? See, that's the illusion of looking at something straight on, or an orthographic view. So what we want to do is we want to look at this from a different view. We want to look at this from the top view, right? So top view, I hit number 7, and now we can see better what's going on. So now I've moved it further along the x-axis. Let me shrink this down a little bit. There we go. Along the x-axis, I've moved it forward a bit. See, it's toward me a little bit, and then now when it goes way to the other side and then way back. Now, what if I wanted this to end up in the center, right there, right? I want to come from over here, swing through the center, and then swing out. So we're adjusting it just a little bit, giving it a little bit more flair to it. So I'm just going to physically move it, just G, and then move it to the center, like this. So we're moving on both axes. So we can just also go Y, move it forward, and then click, and then hit X. Oops, not delete. G first, and then X. There we go. And then move it to the center. So you're snapping along the grid so it doesn't accidentally move up or down or in weird ways. Snapping the grid is very, very important. Now, again, remember, hit I to accept those changes. And now we've got it coming through, right through the center of the camera and then sliding out. And again, it has like an arc like this, right? And now we can adjust what happens when it gets to the center. Now that is what this does. That's what the graph editor does. It goes in and makes changes to those directions. Now, all of these lines represent the different directions or axis, right? So if you've got X, Y, Z, well, that's what these lines represent. If you've got rotation also set, well, it represents rotation. It also represents your scaling, because I put all 3 in here. So if I go over here to Object Transformations, right up here, and I click this, oh, well, looky here. There's all of the different things, and they tell you exactly what they are. Let me tell you that one more time in case you missed it. You go right over here. There's a little turn down arrow, and it's going to tell you what all these lines are about. So I just gave you the Rosetta Stone, or the key of what everything is. Now, the first thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and hide some of them. Just makes it easier for us to work with our line. Eventually, you can leave them all out there, and you'll know what's what. But for right now, we'll go ahead and take out our scale, and we'll take out our rotation right there, because we're not doing anything with scale and rotation. So these are our 3 other axes, right? So we have our X, Y, and Z. Now we're kind of moving in different directions, and we can see that our X direction seems to be the one that is most pronounced. You see how the higher that is, that's the most movement that's going on. So if we look at that movement, it's coming through, it's hitting that center, and then it's sliding out, right? But what if we went to this center one here, and we're going to turn off the other ones as well. We're just going to work with the X. So now we have a red line there. It might be a little hard for you guys to see, but there's a line, and it's starting down here at the bottom. It's going up to the center and then going up along the top edge like this. So like this, down, and then down below. Kind of like a reverse S kind of thing. For sure, for sure. So now what we can do is we can go to the middle point. Now this is very much like Illustrator, so if you watch my Illustrator video, you know how this works. But if you don't, I'll give you a quick refresher. There's the center point, which is called the actual point, right? And then there's things on the side, just like a bicycle handle. Well, on the side of these, those are handles as well. And you can adjust those handles individually, or you can move them together like this. Now the way you do that is you click on the center point over here, so you tell it what you want to adjust, and then you right click. And then you're going to have a whole bunch of options, but I'm not going to worry about all those other ones. The only ones we need to worry about is the handle type, right? So right now it's set to aligned. So if I move it, it's going to move the whole thing, right? So let's look at that first. So if I move one side, it moves the other side as well. So the little handles are moving back and forth. Now remember, you can always go Control Z if you don't like it, and then other side, or Command Z if you're on Mac. And you can go ahead and move that stuff around, and notice that both sides move. But what if we don't want to do that, right? We want to actually break the handles, right? Those would be called free handles, and you could move them individually. So let's take this and let's reverse this curve. Now, first, let's watch it like it is. So it comes through, in through the center, and smoothly goes out there, right? So now I'm going to grab this and I'm going to flip it. So it goes the other way. Watch closely. Here, let me zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see. You're like, Kismet, why did it do that? Well, that's what you told it to do. You told it to move along the x-axis, reach a certain apogee of the x-axis, and then go back the other direction. When it goes down like that, you're telling it to move that way. You're telling it to move back the way it came from. And boom, that's what it does. And then it goes back forward again. That's what that does. This is the power over time, and then also allows you to control the movement. Now, let's look at the difference if I go in and I actually screw around with the actual points itself. So I'm going to go ahead and say handle type free, right click, handle type free. And then I'm going to grab this handle and I'm going to pull it down like this. And I'm going to pull this one down too, so we have a bit of an arc on both sides. And let's feel the difference as well. Oh, it's like it bumped into something. What the heck? Boom. See that? That's the power right there. That's the magic you just saw. And knowing what direction to angle these things is vitally important. Now, it seems very abstract when you start using it. The thing that's causing that to boom, hit like that and then bounce back is the second handle. If I adjust that second handle to be smooth again, watch what happens. There's no bump there anymore, right? And so basically when you put this down below this line here, it's going to go back the other direction. And it's going to be like, boom, it hit the thing and went back. I think that's pretty cool, right? Now, another thing that we could also do here on this particular animation is we could adjust the scale of the object. So let's go ahead and hit S for scale. And then we're going to scale this way down. Now remember, the other objects are also already set at their scale. So if we adjust the scale over here, and again, watch the orange, then we're going to hit I to select it. Then we're going to back up, and we're going to see it come in at a different size, shrink down, bump, and then get bigger. Come in, beep, and then get bigger, right? Because the in ones are bigger, and the one in the middle has been shrunk down, right? So we adjusted the scale. Just by going over there, you can type in the scale. Or you can manually hit S and scale it like I did. So again, now we've got that going for ourselves, right? Now maybe we want to go ahead and move it a little bit vertical, right? Just do a little bit of vertical move. Again, when you vertical move it, you want to hit Z, move that up like that. And then again, accept that change. And now you can see that we're stacking animations. We're stacking things on top of each other. So we've got the movement, right? Or location is what that's called. Then we've got our scale. And then we've got to add one more thing. And that is our rotation. So we're going to actually go to the end, the last frame, over here at 90. And we're going to go ahead and adjust the rotation to be, actually, let's go along the Z. Let's go along the Z. We'll say 90 degrees. And then we'll hit I to accept it. And then we'll go back, and then it doesn't rotate at all. And then all of a sudden, it'll start to rotate on the way out. Now, what if I go in and I put like a crazy big number in there, like 500, right? And then hit I, and then we watch it again. See, now it's rotating a lot more, right? Rotating, rotating, rotating. And if you notice, everybody, that is actually rotating from the very beginning. And the reason why it's doing that is because it's actually affecting the whole thing, because these 2 points are at different points across the scale. So it's going to affect that. Now, if I didn't want it to do that, I can actually do the same thing. I'm going to pull the graph editor down a little bit. I can do the same thing here. I can go in and click this little arrow in the upper right-hand corner. It's going to give me my summary. The summary is all of those things combined, right? Your location, your rotation, and your scale. That's what the summary is. Now, if I click the little arrow next to the summary over here, and then I click Object Transformations again, there's all those things again, right? And it's showing you what's being transformed. Right now, we've got some rotations going in the X and in the Y, right? So if I wanted to not rotate, right? I don't want it to rotate until it gets right here. I can actually slide these forward like this. And then let's go back here. Oh, it's rotating along the other one as well. Hold on. Well, let's do this. Let's add a... Oh, there's no keyframes there. Ah, that's why. There's no keyframes there. So let's go ahead and say this one starts at 0 rotation. So we'll go here to the center one. We'll click on that, and we can see that it has a 245 rotation. We're going to set that to 0. Hit Enter, and then I to accept that. And now we've killed that rotation. It will no longer rotate because this frame that I'm in right here, this frame and that frame has the same rotation, which is 0. So it's going to come along, get to the center, boop, but that, and then start spinning. Right? Bound into it, and then spin. Right? So we're having some fun now. Now we've added all 3 elements to our animation, right? Our location, our rotation, and our scaling, all at the same time. Very easy to do, super powerful. You can also do things like cycles where, say you got a wheel that's turning. Well, you get the wheel going, and once it goes, from 0 to, 355, because 0 would be 360, or 359. So 359, and then the 360 would be 1, right? So it would go, or 0. So it'd be 0, and then 359, and then 1 would be that, and then it would just do that cycle of the wheel turning. All right, great example, like on the Kismet love train, you see that comes through, those little cycle of that. So there we go. So we're basically using the dope sheet to control how the animation goes. Now, again, we can also go into our graph editor here and adjust it in here. And again, the best thing to do is go in here and tinker with this and try to get an idea. Now, right now that we can see that really the Z rotation is the one, I got to zoom out. Ooh, man, it's way up there. The Z rotation is being affected. So if we go in and turn the scale off, we can see right here, boom, the rotation goes way, way up, right? Because I went in and made it like something insane. There we go. And again, you can use your bars over here to control the scale of what you're looking at, right? So this rotates like, a lot. It rotates like 500 degrees. So and remember, 360 is 1 around. So if we wanted it to be a bunch of even more so, to go even faster, we would go to that last frame. Right, go 90. There we go, on the dot. Come on, you. There we go. And let's say, hey, sorry, what's 365 times 10?
365 times 10 is 3,650.
Now, of course, that's easy math, everybody. You can just add the 0 to the end if you wanted to. So there we go. So now we're going to do 3,650 rotation on it, right? So now we're really going to get it going. Let's look at it now when it comes through. It's going really fast now. And you can see also that it stops and kind of rotates back the other way. See how it stops that animation? Boop, it bumps, and then it starts to spin. That's a problem that you're going to have where it kind of reverses the direction of your rotations. And so the rotation here is 3650, and then the rotation here at the beginning at 45 is 0. Now you have a positive and a negative rotation, and I can actually affect the way the rotation goes by grabbing these handles and doing this. See how it stops, starts to rotate like that, right? So it creates a little bit of illusion of it hitting something. Coming in, bounce, and then it's spinning that way, and then it spins through there. So it's like it's hitting, it's like bumping into something which is causing it to spin. So that is the basics of doing that. Again, we can also adjust the way this arrow goes, and we're going to see it start to affect the way that it spins one way and another. And that's what this thing is doing. Remember, it's making it going forward or backwards. Now you can select the points here, right-click on it, and it will actually help you do things like we say constant. We can make it totally square. And then when it rotates in, it's just a constant thing. So it doesn't even rotate. I mean, it's flat square. So we can also go in and adjust where this is, pull this back, really mess with it. And see how it flipped like that because it hit that keyframe. Boop. Right? So again, flat just means totally flat, that it's just going to go one to the next, right? We can also go in and say, you know what, give me a nice circular one. Again, I would try all these out to get a feel for them. That's the one we want. See how it comes in and just Does its thing, right? That's what we want it to do. Right there. We can also go in and say, okay, you know what? I want it to be a bounce. Now, the bounce actually is better for when you're moving stuff as opposed to when you are adjusting your rotations, right? Your rotations, you want it to be pretty linear, like it is. There we go. To be pretty linear in the way that it spins. And that's pretty much the basics of this. Now, of course, you can also zoom in on this, by the way. You can zoom in a little closer on your thing here, and as well as you can drag this out or drag this in, kind of center on your animation. There we go. So it gives you a bit of a longer area so you can fine tune all that animation. So we'll go ahead and put on all of our eyeballs here again. And again, the scale of this is so big compared to these that you can't even see those smaller ones anymore. Everybody, you're like, oh, they're all gone. No, they're there. It's just the fact that the Z scale is so big that you can't see the scale of these ones because these ones are much smaller in their scale. It might be hard for you guys to see that on screen, but there are a bunch of frames in there as well. That's again a bit of the graph editor. So graph editor, pretty awesome. Allowed us to do a little bit of bam, bumping that and then spinning it. We got all of that going. We got all the basics. We did some of the basic stuff. Now, how can we make objects interact with each other, right? How can we animate objects together? The first thing we want to do is kind of close all this stuff up here. And get back to your summary. So you're just looking at your overall summary there. You're looking at your cube down here in your graph editor. And so what we're going to do is actually take the cube out. Now, when we delete the cube, we're going to hit X to delete the cube. All of the information that went with it actually was in the cube itself. So when you delete it, all that stuff is gone, right? Now, we're going to try something, and we're going to try to create a little bit of an animation. You guys are welcome to come join me if you've got Blender, or you can download it. It's totally for free. So we're going to go in and we're going to add an object. We're going to go to Add, Mesh, and then we're going to add a cone right there. There we go. Now also we're going to go into Add, and we're going to go ahead and add a mesh, and we're going to add a plane. So now that's that thing I was talking about, how you've got that ground plane, how it puts it right on the 0, 0, 0 level. And then we're going to add a UV sphere. There we go. So now we have 3 objects, and we're going to go ahead and look at this view over here from the front by pressing 1. And we want these objects to sit right on the ground plane, and then we're going to have them animate in some way. So we're going to go ahead and click this first. We're going to hit G, and then we're going to hit Z to move it along the X-axis, or Z-axis, sorry. And then G, and then Z right here. Now, we can also do this simply by going over here on this and just saying 1 meter, boop, and then it's exactly, because that's 1 meter up from where it was, and that's going to be there. And then we're going to go ahead and take this, and we're going to say G and Z right there. Okay. Now you can see that it's not quite in the camera, so if we were to render that, we wouldn't be able to see the sphere right now, but we're going to work a bit with not only animating these 2 objects, but we're also going to animate the camera. All right, so now we're going to be doing multiple animations at the same time. Now, the first thing that I would do is scale up your plane here. So we're going to say G, and then, or actually, sorry, S, and then we're just going to scale it up to completely incorporate the whole entire thing, right? So big surface plane so that when we're casting shadows, we can see those shadows on that surface plane. Now, also, we want to kind of adjust the way that the camera's looking at it. So we want to go ahead and show our camera again here. We can see it right here. And then we can go ahead and try to adjust the camera. Now, it doesn't move. And there is an option up here. Not sure if it still works. They said they were going to change it. Let's see if they change this in the view menu. Right here. So if I move this. Yes, there we go. So if I move the objects, the camera basically moves into position. It moves itself so it can see what I'm doing. That's what this does right here. Camera to view. So when I click that on, I go ahead and move my view around, and then the camera will basically move into that view. So see how it moves? I move it, hold down middle mouse button, by the way, to scroll the objects and put them pretty much in the center of the view. There we go. All right, then we'll turn that off so we don't accidentally move our camera again. Because actually, we want to move it over just. I'm such a stickler, everybody, that I can see that needs to go over just a little bit, and then I'll fix it like that. There we go. All right, and then turn that off. Okay, so that's off. So now we have our camera view and we have our objects. The camera is now, because the camera is a physical object, so the camera is now looking at our objects. So what we want to do is we want to take the sphere and we want the sphere to be spinning on top of it. So we might want to go ahead and give it a color. So we're going to go down here to this one. It's called Materials. We're going to say New, click New Material, and we're just going to turn this one blue. Just like that. There we go. See? Look how it's blue, everybody. You're like, Kismet, it doesn't show up as blue. Ah, that's the next thing we need to learn. How do we see that actually in color? And that has to do with your different modes that you use as well. Making sure I don't have any of this stuff on incorrectly. No, okay. That has to do with your different modes, right? Which basically show you your different views. So if I go over here, you can see them right here. And it will show you whether you can see that color. Notice how I can see my color up there now? And that's because this is viewport shading. So it's not only is it doing like light shading, but it's also shading the colors as well. It's adding the colors in there at the same time. So this particular one over here, we need to adjust the way the view is. Oh man, I gotta remember how to do that. Up here. Object mode. I thought it was up here. Wow, just brought a total blank to my brain. Aperture. Sometimes that happens, everybody. Remember, I got a bad sleep apnea as well. All right, those are your different modes. That's that. All right, it should show us that blue color there. Let's turn our light on as well. So basically we gave a texture to the thing. Now we're going to do something a little tricky. We'll come back to that here in a second. We're going to go into edit mode. And in edit mode, we're going to go over here to edit mode. We can actually put multiple colors on this object. So to do multiple colors, we need to select certain areas. We can select points, lines, and faces, right? So these in the front here will be faces. And this is going to help us to see the animation. Otherwise, it's just going to be a blue circle spinning, and there's no reference of it actually turning, everybody. It'll be hard to see the reference. So up here at the top, very top up there, you see it popping up is our face mode. So we're going to select all the faces along here, like this. And if you watch my last one, I talked all about selecting faces and doing all that stuff. We're going to create another material. We're going to say new, and this one's going to be yellow like this, and then we're going to click assign. So that's going to give it a yellow stripe right there, right? And if we rotate around, we can see there's a yellow stripe, and we can see when it's actually spinning. All right, then we get out of edit mode, back into object mode. And that's just going to give us a reference. Kind of looks like an eye a little bit, doesn't it? This is still freaking me out over here. Why is this not showing me in color? Huh. Something simple, too. God, I hate that. I hate it when it's something simple I can't remember. X-ray mode. Oh, I didn't have it pulled out far enough. I did have it pulled out far enough, and I couldn't see the buttons. That's what it was. All right. See, that's what happens when you get older, everybody. You have like a brain freeze. All right, super easy. Just go up here, you pull it out a little bit further, and you select your viewport shading, just like you did on the other side. That's what I was looking for. I was looking for that thing. I was like, why is it not there? Didn't have the window big enough. Again, sometimes that happens. All right, I know it's there. That's the important part, everybody, is knowing that it's there, and that's the important thing. Okay, so let's make this little ball just rotate. Again, we're going to do a 360-degree rotation over 90 frames. So first thing we do is we say I, and the only thing that we want to do, rotation. That's it, right there. And then we're going to go to 90. And we're going to hit we're going to rotate it first. And this, I'm going to do it mathematically down here. We're going to go to the actual object itself. Where's our object? Not selected. Yes. There it is. Object. Object. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to rotate this, right? And so we're going to rotate it Z-wise because Z is up and down, so it's going to rotate around that axis. So we're going to rotate it 359. Boom. Now notice it turned orange. Well, that's because it didn't select it yet. And now, guess what we got? A rotating sphere. Now see the blue side where you can't see it? How you can't tell whether it's rotating or not? So you got to have some sort of indicator of rotation. And that's another concept I'm showing you right now. More than the how to do the rotation is the concept of the fact that you got to be able to see it rotating. And that's super useful. So now we have this ball rotating on the top. Now we have a bit of a problem. You see how it slows down at the end? Watch that yellow part come up, and then it slows down at the end, right? But you just want it to keep rotating, right? You just want it to keep going round and round and round. Well, what's happening here in your graph editor is it's saying, hey, I want to do something called an ease out. There's an ease in and an ease out, and that's where it slows down and then stops. Or it speeds up and then goes faster, right? Or starts slow and then it builds up speed, right? But what if we don't want it to do that? What if we want it to just go and be a nice linear rotation, right? So here we go. We're going to go ahead and choose linear. And now it's in a cycle. Now it's cycling out. You can't even see where it starts over. So linear means that it just goes like this. And then your ease out or ease in is the one that's curved. Now, if I go right here and right click again, I can tell it what type of interpolation mode. If I go Bezier, your Bezier interpolation is that ease in and ease out. And that's what this handle is doing down there. That's what that handle is doing over here on the side. Right here, it's saying, okay, come in. I want your speed to be nice and consistent across here. But, oh, wait, now we're going to curve out a little bit. So I want you to slow down and then stop and then start again. So if you want it to look perfect, right-click, interpolation mode, linear. Or you can just modify it yourself. So now we learned how to do a perfect cycle. I'm teaching you all sorts of cool stuff here, everybody. Let's see some GGs in the chat. Let's see some ones in the chat if you guys are enjoying this. Again, I'm teaching you powerful stuff. This is all stuff you can stack, concepts that you can stack on top of the other things that you can do. So we've got that interaction going on. Now me, I would go in and I would probably modify this again and edit it. We're going to edit it, but we're going to go ahead and rotate around to the other side, and you're probably going to guess what I'm going to do. That's right. We're going to put another one on the other side. And you can put multiple textures on the same object. And again, we'll go to our material. We're going to go to our second material here, the yellow one, and we're going to hit assign. So there we go. There we go. Now let's look at that animation and see if it gives us that real feeling of rotation, right? Very cool. I like it. I like it. Now, just for funsies, we'll also go in and we're going to do this one, and we're going to do this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then we're going to put a yellow on there. And now when we rotate it, we got a little happy face on there. See? Look how fun that is, everybody. Again, now we got a little rotating happy face. Notice I only have it on the one side. So now that's really obvious that it's rotating, right? So again, that gives you not only did I teach you about rotating objects, I teach you about cycling objects, I teach you how to edit objects individually, the actual faces of the object using the edit mode, but also I showed you about how to do multiple textures on an object. I just did all of that within just a few minutes, right? Because I like to get to the point, everybody. I don't like to drag it on forever. Just get to the point, show me the thing so I can learn it and move on to the next thing. So there you go. Now remember, you guys can be doing this as well. Hey, Foggy, what's up? You guys can be doing this as well. Remember, you can download Blender and try this out for yourself. Again, now remember, I've been doing 3D animation for a really long time, and I've been doing 3D, but I don't consider myself like super incredibly good at animation, and that's because I don't spend enough time at it. And again, I find it's more about the feeling. Is it spinning too fast or too slow or just right? Put a 1 in the chat if it's spinning too slow. Put a 2 if it's spinning just right, or put a 3 if it's too fast. Feel how it feels. You guys let me know. Let's go. Come on, put it in the chat. What do you think? 1, 2, or 3? Number 1, too slow. Number 2, just right. Number 3, too fast. Let's go. Come on, we got some. Come on, this is an interactive stream. Let's go. Let's go. Come on, in the chat. Wake up a little bit, chat. Let's go. 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. We got to get at least a couple more peeps. Let's go. Again, feel how it feels to you. All right. Now, here's the great thing, everybody. There's no wrong answer. Because remember, it's your animation. Now, to me, I might want it to go faster at some point, and then other times I want it to go slower. But this is about right. This is about, the feeling of it is about right. It doesn't feel too fast. It doesn't feel too slow. Now, let's test it. Let's go test it. Remember, you can grab the keyframe from the end here. Make sure you only got the end one selected. Don't do what I did earlier. I had too many frames. So this should be white, and that one should be orange or yellow. Because if you have them both selected, it'll actually move both keyframes at the same time. You don't want to do that. Just click off to the side, and then click on this. And then we're going to go ahead and make this like 30 frames, which means it's going to do it in 1 second. How's that feel? That seems pretty fast, right? And how can we make it slower? Well, we could just drag it out to, say, 110 frames. And then now, over the time, it's going to rotate slower. See how you have that control? See how you have that mastery of time? It's so cool, everybody. It's so incredibly cool. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and tell it to be at 30. And this is just so I can show you something, right? So it's going to be frame 1 to frame 30. It's going to go this fast. But it stops. And it doesn't keep going. Now, how can I make it spin? Now, there's actually other animator in here that you can do a bit more animation, and we're going to do that next time, where you can create cycles and all sorts of stuff, and you can connect objects together and do all sorts of cool stuff. But we're not doing that this time. We're just doing the basics. So what we can do now is we can select the 2 frames. We can Control-C, copy those frames, and then we can go ahead and go forward another 30 frames, which is going to be 60, and then paste it. And then now when we do it, what happens? It turns around and goes the opposite direction. So again, we can control the direction. Now, why does it do that? That has to do with your graph editor down here. Look at what it's doing. Now, I could also do the same exact thing by simply going back out of here like this and Control-Z this. So just taking these frames out. And doing it. Now, you're going to have this problem. You're going to be like, wait a minute, it didn't turn the way I wanted it to turn. It turned the opposite direction. So what you do is you go from 30, and then you go to 60, and you look at your rotation down here in your object menu, and you say, okay, it's at 359. So here it's at 0. Here it's at 359. And then here, I can go ahead and set it back to 0, right? And then let's see what happens again. Oop, I forgot to do the keyframe. Let's set it to 0. Let's hit I to accept that keyframe. That went back the other way. That's because going to 0 is a negative direction. It's a reverse direction. So if I tell it to go to 0, that's not what you want it to do, right? You want it to keep rotating, right? So what you can do is go over here, and instead of going to 0, you can go ahead and go 359 plus another 360, right? Hey, sorry, what's 359 plus 360?
359 plus 360 is 719.
So what if I put 719 in there and then do it?
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
See what we did? Because it's actually just keeps moving. It's keep going. Now, I could actually set it to cycle. Now, how could I just make it loop, right? How could I make it loop this fast? Well, what you do is you just cut down the frames. If I wanted to just loop how I have it at frame 30, then I can just have it do this and watch it. Boom, watch the playhead. Boom, it jumps back. So now I've got it looped. So I can loop it that way as well, or if I'm going to do more stuff with it later, I can actually use just a higher number. So watch out for that when you're using 0. And then also, we can go ahead and set this back to 90. And again, that's the length of our animation. Remember, it's 3 seconds long because we're doing 30 frames per second. So now we've got it going a bit faster and it's spinning. And what it should feel like is that it doesn't skip. Watch what happens if I change this number, say, to 700. Remember that it starts with the yellow line facing forward. Oh, wait, did I actually accept the number? Oh, let's try it again. Got to hit 700, then hit I. There we go. Notice that it didn't complete its rotation. It stopped. It stopped at that particular spot. So we're going to go 719. And then go back here, and we can see that it actually starts at an angle here. We're looking at it from a different perspective, from a front perspective there. But we can see that this starts here, and this is very important to watch this one. This is the one you want to watch. And then it goes there and stops, and then goes there, and it doesn't quite make it. That tells us that we're not quite doing a full cycle. So if we go 719, and then we hit I, now we're going another full cycle to where it goes around, and then it stops. Right? It's all about that math, everybody. All about that math. Now, we could also go to the end here and say, okay, I want to go ahead and do another one. Hey, Siri, what's 719 plus 360?
719 plus 360 is 1079.
Now, there's also a faster way to do this and an easier way, and that's what we'll get in next time when we're doing cycling. But this basically is a great way to get started. It's just increase the mass by 360. And so now we've got it spinning. Now, when it loops, watch what happens. You see that ever so slight pause? There's an ever so slight pause there because it's showing 2 of the same frame. And that's because when you get to the end, it's showing you this straight, and we go here, it's showing you at a slight angle. Now, it's not normally visible by people. You guys probably can't see it, but I can see it. And that's because what I've done is I've aligned it to where this part at the end, right here, frame 90, is exactly the same as frame 1, which is what you don't want. What you want is this last one, before it cycles again, to be back by 1 frame backwards, right? 1 rotation backwards, where you would have it like right here, right? So right here at 89 is actually a better frame, and that's 1067 if we look at the numbers over here. And 1067 is then going to go to 1079, which basically is going to be back to 0, and then that cycle will continue. So we actually just want to back it up by 1, so we're going to go to the end. We'll go back by 1 frame, 1067, 1067. And then when we cycle it, you see no gap. You see no sudden stutter. It's just going to rotate perfectly every time. That's some powerful stuff I'm showing you, everybody. That's some powerful stuff, for sure. Is it perspective that makes the different frames appear to spin at different speeds? It is you're controlling time. It is how many frames between the beginning and the end of that rotation, right? Because frames represent time. And time also is represented by how fast those frames are going. So in my case, I'm basing it on 30 frames per second, right? The minimum you want to do is like 15. But if you want it to be a nice, smooth animation, especially when you're going to just show it on the computer, if you're going to show it in film, then you want it to be a different speed. But if you're going to show it in the computer, 30 frames is a good milestone. So that means that I actually am telling it how much time I want it to take for it to spin. I want it to spin in 1 second. Ready? 1/1000. Oop, try to get it. Hold on. 1/1000. So again, in 1 second it spins. That's what you're doing here. You're controlling how fast it goes. How about I want it to spin in half a second? Okay? Well, if I know that 30 frames is 1 second long, and I put it in the middle of the 30 frames, which I did, then it's going to do it in half a second. See the difference in the time? And then see how it slowed down and sped back up again? Because I changed the actual speed of the actual time itself, which is just so cool, everybody. It's just such a cool thing that you can do. Now see how they're all consistent again? Very, very cool. And again, we're only doing the rotation, so we only told it that we want to do the rotation. Now down here, of course, we also have, again, our graph editor. Now let's say when it's spinning, when it gets right here at this point, we want it to be real linear, but then we want it to slow down in more of a, and we're going to go to the other point, more of a kind of Bezier curve thing. So it's going to slow down when it gets more toward the end. So it's going to go linear and then start to slow down a little bit and then start again and slow down a little bit. It might be hard for you to notice, but let me make it really obvious, all right? I'm going to pull this handle down. Put that back up. Grab this handle. There we go. And we're really going to put a big curve in there like this. We'll make it more obvious. Or actually, in that case, it's speeding up. Sorry, my bad. Down. Down to slow down. Okay, there we go. Actually, it's reversing its direction. What do I got? Oh, I don't have, I have the wrong handle there. Let's put that back the way it was. In fact, let's turn this back to linear. And this one to linear. Come on. Oh, it's here. Look at my point. There we go. Linear. Okay. Wrong point. Wrong point. All right. So we've got our Z. None of these other ones are being adjusted. Make sure we've got our Z in there. No, that was the right point. All right, that was the right point. So we got our Z. Again, you see, oh, it's actually doing it now. See how it slows down a little bit and then speeds up? And that's because we added a slowdown to the thing by moving it up and down. See, a little faster, slower, and faster, slower. We move this down. It's going to go slow and then fast. That's what I'm trying to show you in the graph editor, right? Faster, up, slower, down. Watch this. I can actually make it go backwards, too. Ready? How did I do that? This point right here, and let me get my arrow for this for sure. This point right here, this point is higher than this point. See, when this one goes down below that point, it's causing it to reverse its direction, right? So it's actually going in a negative rotation as opposed to a positive rotation. And that's all that this line means. Is it going in a positive rotation or a negative rotation, right? That's why it slows down. It slows down because the speed or the amount of rotation is less, or the amount of rotation changes direction and goes the opposite direction. Now watch the difference. Watch when I move it up again. I'm going to show you that all again. I'm going to move it up above this first point here, and I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to move it up above that first point, up here. And then I'm going to play it again. You can see it ever so slightly speeds up. What if I put it way up here? Massively speeds up, right? And if you notice, it starts back in the other direction again. Now, again, this is a problem we had earlier, and I'm showing you how to solve this problem. You're going to have this problem all the time. It's going to drive you insane, except for when you watch my stream, then you're not going to have that problem, are you? Because guess what happened? When we pulled this way up here, we were above this point now. And so when we're above that other point over here, then it's going to cause that rotation to go in the other direction. So we want this point to be in between the 2 points so it consistently rotates in the same direction. You should have went, oh, you should have had one of those moments just now. And so if I put it in between, watch what happens. Now it is just rotating just as it was before, right? And that's what this is representing. And now you know how to use the graph editor. Not only can you animate, not only can you add textures and move stuff around and rotate it and do all of those things I've already showed you just in this one stream, but you can also control the direction, the speed, the way it moves right here in the graph editor, because this is really the thing to understand. So watch where you have your points. The more you move that middle point, the more it'll either speed up or slow down the interaction between both sides, right? Very, very cool graph editor stuff there. There you go. Okay, so now we have one thing moving, but we also want the whole thing to bounce off of there, right? We want it to go up a little bit and basically do a little bit of a bounce. Let's say right here at 60. So at 60, we want to move it upwards, the actual object. Now I'm going to go back to object mode here. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit G and then Z and move this up, way up like this. And then, and why is it not showing orange over here? That was weird. Did I hit I? I must have hit I. Oh, it moved the whole thing up. Hold on. I don't want to move the whole thing up. I just want to do that one frame right there. G and Z. Oof. The Windows key, get out of there. Should have only moved it up on that frame. Oh, because it doesn't have location. It doesn't have location in there. It only has rotation. That's why I did that. Ah, see? So I actually needed to keyframe these as location and location. So let's go back and do that. We'll hit I, location and rotation. I knew there was something I was forgetting there to come back and click those. All right, so we're going to do both of these. And they're already in a certain location. And the rotation will be remembered. So I'm just going to say location and rotation. Notice it adds more down here. And so we're going to go to 60. And again, try to have you have the oh, wait, hold on. Here's what we'll do. We'll back up. Control Z that all the way back until it's down. There we go. Until it's down, then we'll go ahead and hit I, location and rotation. I, location, rotation. You get the idea. And we should have this turned down so you guys can see that happen. And then I, location and rotation. There we go. So now we have the ability to animate the actual location as well. So we're going to hit G and we're going to go Z. G and then Z. There we go. I got to press the right buttons. Up like this. And then this one thing here should hit I. And now I've just kind of moved it. Did you notice that you can see these orange bars? These orange bars mean that nothing's going on between those keyframes. And when the orange bars go away, that's telling you there is something going on between those keyframes, right? So very important to know what that does and what that's for, right? So now, oh, you'd already see it when I backed up, but up it goes and down it goes. And so we've created a cycle rotation, and now we've added another element, which is the going up. Now, what if we wanted to adjust that Z speed and adjust and kind of make it do some fun things, make it feel a bit more realistic? So we're going to go ahead and take out all of this, and we're going to look at our Z rotation, or Z location here, right? So at 60, it's going to go up, or actually, I think I did it 30. 30, it's going to go up and then come back down. So there is a line there, but we just can't see it, right? It's so incredibly faint and small that you have to zoom way, way in, right? Way in there to see that particular one. So we're going to go ahead and move over. Actually, I think it's 60 is where we put the thing here, and we'll zoom out this way, and we'll zoom in the vertical way. Scroll this down. There we go. Zoom in some more. There is a fit key, which I can't seem to remember off the top of my head. There we go. A little bit this way. Again, you got to get way in there so you can see it. All right, there we go. That's what we're looking for. There is a function, I believe. It's like fit curve to window or something of that nature. But we did it. We got it. Now we can see that curve. Now that's, again, what's known as an ease out and an ease in. Let's try some different ones, right? First, we'll fill this one. Up and down, right? So it goes up, slows down a little bit, and then comes back down and slows down on the thing. So just kind of a nice little smooth thing. Now, what if we want it to be linear? So let's try linear. On that side, and linear on this side. So we have to do it on both. Oh, come on both sides of the points. There we go. So it's like a tint, right? Here we go. See how it has that little boop at the end? So it doesn't smooth out. It just like it's bumping into it and then coming down. See, so that's linear. So it's going to feel like very don't. That's it. It's going to feel not smoothed out. Ease ins and ease outs are awesome. You can't control those. What if we say the other one here, the constant? Then over here, constant. It's going to give us this kind of L-shaped. What does that do? Boop. Boop. That's all that it does. Max 0 and then 100%. 0 and 100% move, right? That's all it's doing. Again, learning those different ones is vitally important. Now, how do we get it back the way it was? Well, we go back to Bezier, like that, and then we're going to have that smooth up, and then it holds, and then back down. Bezier, there we go. I got to do Beziers on both points, so it comes up, and then it goes back down. Again, this is the direction in which it's going, up and down. This is the location. We can move over just a little bit so we can see the other end of that curve. Now, what if I wanted it to go up and go and act like it's going to hit it, right? Well, what I would do is I would go into the handles, and I would say free handles, and I would pull these handles down and pull these handles down so that what it's doing is it's going to come up that curve, bump, and then do that thing that we did before, but it's going to be a little bit more smooth. Boop. Now, what if we wanted to do it when it comes back down, right? When it comes back down to the bottom. Well, if we wanted to do that, we would probably need to adjust our overall animation so that it actually comes down on 60 and goes up on 30. So what we'll do is we'll go to 60, see what our Z is right here, which is 4.6. Actually, let's just make this 4, just to make the math easy. So that's going to be 4, but actually we're not going to do it at 4. We're going to say 0. Oh, wait, that's not right either, right? Because we got to put it on top of the thing. So we want to go ahead, and I can remember, you don't have to actually just move it in there. You can also move it over there as well if you don't remember my other thing here. And this one over here, we're actually going to go from the front side so we can see where that hits. Then we'll grab this. Again, you hit G and then Z to move that down. So it's spinning on the top there. And then we'll say, okay, oops, 61. You got to be right on the keyframe there. It wasn't on the keyframe. Move that down. Then I'd accept that. Okay, now if you notice the little thing went away, right? The little bump went away, and that's because, guess what? It's not going up anymore. So let's move this animation back a little bit to 30. And so we're going to say, okay, go in the Z direction 4. Oop, not scale, my bad. Location. Z direction 4, there we go. And so what it's going to do is it's going to start rising earlier. It's going to rise from the very beginning of the animation. Rise up, and then come down, right? Now, when it comes down to that bottom part at 60, I want it to go boom. I want it to bump the top of it, all right? And so what we're going to do is go to that moment at 60, and we're going to say free, and then we're going to put this down. Oh, no, we got other handles there. Don't get all those handles, just this one. Just this handle here. There we go. And then again, create this kind of little bump area like this, and then let's look at the difference again. Oh, little too late there. Oh, it's going in the opposite direction. It's bumping upwards and not downwards. So we have to reverse this way. There we go. You see it? Well, so it's like it's hitting the top of it. I'm showing you like the most powerful stuff, everybody. So again, downwards, we rotate it up like that. And if we wanted to hit from the top, we would rotate it down because it would then be hitting upwards and the other one would be hitting downwards. So now we have it, boop, adding a bit of extra kind of flavor to it, right? So that's what you want to do with your animation. You start with the basics and then you continuously stack basically flavor onto it. You stack other things that you might want to do. Now also, what we could do is we could have the object here at the bottom, our cylinder, interacting as well. So we could say, okay, well, this is where we want our cylinder to end up. But we want to go ahead and have it hit the thing as well. Now, what I would do also on this one is I would go in and adjust the front animation to be linear. And I'll show you why here. So let's go in and say linear, and then watch the difference. So it takes a little bit longer before it starts to go up. Now, also, we could say, you know what? I don't want it to raise up yet. I want it to wait half the amount of frames and then move up, right? So if we want to do that, we can simply just grab the object, move it back down to where it was, like this. Let's say right there. And then say, you know what? I want it like this. And then what it's going to do is, notice how the line flattened out, that line? That's because it's just going to stay there and then move up, right? Stay there and then move up. And you're like, Kismet, do you do this as you go along, or do you pre-figure all this out before the stream? Pre-figure it out all before the stream. Exactly what I'm going to show you. Because I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste your time. I want you to get the info you need as fast as possible and then get right to it. So you could probably already guess what I'm going to do, everybody. I'm going to make the cone bump the knock the ball up, right? So at what point does it knock up? At 15. So that's where we want our keyframe for our cone. Our cone's going to hit it right at that second, right? So we're going to hit I, and we're just going to say location, or maybe location, rotation, scale. In this case, I'm actually going to location and scale it, because we're going to do something a little fun in a minute. But we're going to say location and scale. So if we go there and go here, it's still in the same position. Now I'm going to go back to frame 1, and I'm actually going to move it down a little lower using our Z direction. And now I've got it animated. Oops, I forgot to hit I and then do the scale thing. Try that again. Down below the plane, like that. And then I, let's see, location and scale. Boop. Boop. Now, getting that to feel right is your job as the animator. Now, see how it seems like it's a little delayed? It actually moves a little late. A little extra late, right? It's like it comes up, boop, and then it moves a bit late. And that's because this one here doesn't quite feel like it's hitting at the point where it is. So I'm going to move it forward by 5 frames and then feel the difference. Feel the difference? It's very subtle. But it feels like it actually hits the thing, right? Right there. Now, it actually doesn't hit it, but it just feels more right than it did before. And this is something that's actually pretty funny about animation and things like that, is syncing things to each other. Now, also, another thing I need to do is I can actually make it hit it simply by hitting G and then going Z and then moving this up just a little bit further right to there. Like this, and then I accept the Z there, and then we can actually see it, boom, hit the thing and go up, and then it comes back down and then lands in there. It's like it's poking a hole in the bottom, right? Now, we have a gray cylinder against a gray background, so we definitely want to put a material on there so it's just a little easier to see. So let's say a nice purple. There we go. And so now we've got that in purple, and now we can see that coming through the bottom, hitting the thing right there. And again, graph editor, super useful. Let me go ahead and make it way bigger here so you guys can really get a feel for it now. Whoop. And fine-tuning that animation is vitally important. Now, when it comes back down, what I want it to do is slightly smash, it's called squash and stretch, slightly smash the cylinder, right? So how do I do that? Well, it's just going to be scaling it, right? You're just going to scale it a little bit. So it comes back down right at 60, and we've got our cylinder there. We're going to go ahead and go to object here, and we're going to adjust the Z scale of it. So it comes down just a little bit, right? Now, before you actually put this one in, remember that you're going to need another keyframe after that to actually make it stretch back up again, right? So we're going to go over here to 90 first, and we're going to say the same thing, location and scale. We're going to go back to 60 when it's getting hit. And then we're going to say location up here, location and scale. And then we're going to adjust its actual Z scale down just a little bit. like this. And then accept that. And notice the orange goes away because now it's actually animated. And again, we'll go ahead and pull this up nice and big. Here we go. We're like, well, Kismet, it shrunk before it actually hit it. Yes, that's because the animation is going the whole entire time. And you only want the animation to start and end, and you want it to be going way faster than what's going on, right? You want to just like squeeze it at that last second, or squeeze and then big, right? You want it just like boom, boom, right? Real fast. So that's what you're doing with this timeline. You're controlling the speed at which it gets squashed and stretched, right? So if I put it at 60, it's going to start squashing, stretching across that whole entire time, like that whole time. When I actually don't want it to change until right at 60, right? I want it to go ahead and be the same as this one over here, way over here, right? So basically that has to do with these frames here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the cone from over here, just these here. I'm going to copy that, move that way up, put it at 55, and watch the difference. See how it just did it at the last second? Boop. It's just so cool, everybody, that you have power over time. Now, it's not quite perfectly synced. And that's because it should start to stretch or squash just a little bit before. Say like this. It's like almost like anticipation. A little too much, a little too much. Actually, let's go a little late on this. Yeah, there we go. Now, there's actually stuff in there that will actually control that. You can actually have objects that hit against each other. Have you ever noticed that there's also a fluid generator at the beginning of my stream? Those things that is filling up with fluid, that's done in Blender. Which is really cool because you can create containers and then the fluid interacts with the side of the containers and it basically does the animation for you. So you have the fluid flowing in, you've got a solid container, it hits the side of that solid container and does that fluid simulation. And you can do the same thing with objects. You can make hard objects that actually when they hit each other, boom, and then it figures out the physics of all that collision itself. Or you could be dropping objects and when it hits the ground, it does that collision itself. Right? So you can have all those collision simulations in there as well. Now, I'm just kind of manually doing it the old school style. Boom. Now, another thing that we might want to do at this exact same point as well is have the sphere squeeze a little bit, right? Right at that point. So it's hitting the thing. It's getting a little squeezed. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of that. I'm just showing you the basics here, everybody. You could get super complex into this, but I'm just going to squeeze it just a little bit right there like this. Again, make that nice and big. Zoom in a little bit. And then we'll see what happens. Now, again, we have that same problem. Oh, wait a minute. It's like squished the whole entire time. Well, the reason why is because I didn't tell it that I wanted to adjust the scale across all the keyframes. If I adjust the scale will remain consistent because I didn't include that as a keyframe option. But if I change it, it's just going to change it overall. And it's actually useful when you want to do that. So if you just do rotation and scale, and then later on, if you want to adjust the location and rotation, and you just want to adjust the scale later, and you know you're not going to animate the scale, that's really useful. So that you can just adjust it, and we'll adjust it throughout your animation, especially if your animation is very complex. So very, very easy to do. And again, that's called a bit of squash and stretch. Boop. Pretty cool, right? Fluid water break. Well, there you go. Boop. So that's teaching you a bit of the basics of interacting objects and slowing things down, interacting a little squash and stretch with that. Now, if you want to really understand animation, squash and stretch is the ultimate. When your character should bend or their arms should stretch out or whatnot. Even though it may not be realistic, especially doing cartoon stuff, it's not perfectly realistic, but it looks better. If you're doing that. The same thing with ease-ins and ease-outs. The animation will look better if it comes in, slows down, and stops. Then if it just goes, right? If it slows down, it has a bit of extra animation, right? Or speeds up. It comes in, boom, and then just comes to an end, right? Or when it comes down and it actually bumps the other object. Boop. Then that object just stretches right back out again. Boop. So there you go. And again, we can go in and we could fine tune this all through our curves by using faster curve, shorter curve. I'm just showing you the concepts of it and not necessarily every single step that you should do in Blender. Again, understanding the concepts is always more important than any of that other stuff. You can always learn the tools, but knowing the concepts, knowing what you can do is very important. Now, at the same time, everybody, while this is doing its little squash and stretch and all of that kind of fun stuff, I actually want to rotate the camera. I want to move the camera around the object itself. So to do that, we're going to need to actually click the camera up here and basically use our other view over here to control the camera. And there's our camera right there in that upper right-hand corner. Now, what you can do with cameras is you can actually just physically move them like this, move the perspective in and out, which is what I'm doing. So I'm basically zooming in and out. And we'll undo that. There we go. And then what we can also do is move the camera, right? And if you move it, notice on the side there that we're moving the perspective, which is not really what we want to do. We want to go ahead and take this camera and we want to kind of move it around so we can kind of watch the animation while it's actually kind of panning by the animation, right? Also, we want to see the top of the ball a little bit better. So again, if we go to our top view, we can go ahead and hit G and move this out, and you can see that it's moving it further away, or I can move it in closer. It's going to show more of it. Now, if I want to see it kind of more kind of centered, where it's up and down, well, then I would go to the side view, and then I would move it down. And you're like, well, okay, that doesn't work. But you got to actually, it's got two separate points. It's got the front, which is the lens, and then it's got the back point that you can go in and rotate. So if we go in, rotate, go in and rotate, notice that it rotates from the back. Now, the problem with the camera right now is that the camera is at a kind of its own unique angle. And to make this a bit easier, I'm going to go ahead and hit X to delete this camera at an angle. And I'm going to add another camera. You can have a bunch of cameras. And I'm going to add this camera. And you're going to notice that its perspective is straight on from the front. And I'm going to go ahead and move this out. And then I'm going to tell it over here to go to the camera mode. There we go. And so it's looking at it directly from the front. So we can't control the angle of the camera and the way that's looking. And then I'm going to move it out further. And then I'm going to look at it from the side. And then I'm going to move it up so it's right in the center. Now what we're getting right now is called perspective, right? You have your orthographic front views where you're looking straight at it. And then you have your perspective views, which is basically your camera. So we're going to go ahead and move this out. Maybe we're going to move it up just a little bit and then rotate the camera down. So it's kind of looking at it from a kind of upper upper angled view. And there we go. So now we've got it perfectly centered in the thing. So it's easy to readjust the camera afterwards. Right? Maybe just a little bit further out here. We're not hitting that top part there. Okay. Now, whenever you change your camera, what it's going to do is you might have been looking at it from a different angle, and now the animation looks different, right? If you notice that it doesn't quite hit the cone on the way down, right? It doesn't quite hit it. And again, now it's changed, but you can always go back and remodify that particular object. We can click on it here. It comes in. It knocks it up. It comes down. And it doesn't quite hit it. It starts to go a little too early. So what I'm going to do is grab these frames and move them forward. And then when it comes down, boop, now it's pushing that down. See? Again, you have the power of time. And I'll show you again. See, what I did is I moved these frames forward so that it starts to squish later. It doesn't squish. Again, the orange means nothing's going on. It stays the same as the previous frame. And then right here, when it's just about to touch it, boom, it pushes it down and squishes it down. And we could even do it even faster if we wanted to. Boop. Like that. So it's really hitting it. So again, if you're looking at it from a different perspective, definitely want to adjust it. All right, now back to animating the camera. Now the camera is just like any other object. We got it at frame 1. We can go ahead and hit I over here. We got to be in the thing. Oh, there we go. Mighty Warforged coming in with the 38 months of sub love. Thank you very much. And then rotation. There we go. And then, so I keyframed it, meaning I'm going to rotate it. Now, really what I wanted to do is also move and do that. So if you change your mind, you can always go back and say, you know what, I want to do all the things. I want to do location, rotation, and scale, right? I want to adjust the size of the camera and all that. Now, I can tell you don't need scale at all, usually on your camera. So that's actually useless. So we're going to go back and we're going to say location and rotation. So we're going to move it, and we're going to also rotate and animate the camera. So this is where stuff gets a little trickier, all right? So we've got the straight on view here, and we want to go here and then back again, all right? So if we know we want it to end up in the same spot where we started, we just go to the end. We go ahead and put another keyframe, location and rotation, and then we're good, right? So it's going to move from where it is to where it is, and then we just go into the center, and then we set up the center of where we want it to be, so like this, and then we're going to rotate the camera this way. And then we're going to move it out further like this. And then we got to make sure that we say to keyframe it. So we'll say location and rotation, keyframe, or we could have went over here and hit I. And then now, if you watch the cameras moving at the same time it's moving. That's pretty cool, everybody. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you. Now the actual camera itself is moving at the same time. And you can see by the background plane, which is why I have that plane there, you can actually see that it's moving. So the camera's moving. Both objects are moving. They're somewhat interacting with each other based on, you know, the curves that we set up. So now you got a lot of motion going on, and it's oscillating. It's going there, it's going back, and it's oscillating back and there. And it will do that all day. Now, once you have your animation done, now we need to talk about the most important part of making this look awesome, and that's the rendering. So I'm going to go up here to render, and I'm going to say render image. Boom. Now, my machine, very, very fast, right? If you have a nice graphics card and all that stuff, you can take advantage of your graphics card in Blender. So if you have a 4090 like me, it's got it done. But what do we got? We got a bunch of kind of flat areas. Doesn't look very smooth. So if we did want to smooth this out, we can go ahead and click on it. We can press 1, 2, or 3 to adjust the smoothness, or we can just go shade smooth. And now you can see that. And then down here, shade smooth. Then when we render it, see how it's nice and smooth now? Now you still have your segments over here. That is going to show you these kind of edges, and we can fix all of that. But that's very important when you go to render, is that you turn on your smooth shading. You don't need it when you're animating because it's just faster if you don't. And then when you're ready, then you turn that smoothing on like that. So now we've got it smooth. Now we want to actually render the animation. So we go render animation. Okay, so there's our rendered animation. Now the problem is, if I go to play the animation, it doesn't do anything. Because what it did is it just created 90 pictures in that amount of time, which was about 5 seconds on my machine. It just created 90 photos. Now if we go into Photoshop, over here, and we look at, I don't even know where I rendered those animations now that I think about it. Where did I render it at? Now I'm rendering it again. Oh, I got to go look in the folder. Open image right here. I'm going to render it again. It only takes 5 seconds. Okay, open image. There we go. It's under Fun Detected Emote, 3D Graphics. Right there. 3D Graphics, Fun Detect Emote. I'm going to bring up my backdrop just in case it brings up some stuff that still is not ready for you guys to see yet. All right. Fun Detected. I do a lot of sponsored stuff that sometimes I might get in trouble if I show you. 3D Graphics. I seriously doubt I'll get in trouble, but just in case, we'll just look out. It says it's putting it in there, but it's not showing it to me. Probably saving it into a temporary file. Trying to find where I put my temporary file here. Should have put it in here. Yes. Oh, it's weird. It's not giving me. Oh, the options are on the side. Oh, I'm thinking of a whole other 3D program. Wow, I totally hurt my brain right there. I was thinking of Strata Studio Pro. There's a when you bring up the render menu, it brings up a thing that you put it in there, but it's not like that in Blender. That's also in Maya, by the way. It pops up a window, but in Blender, it's over here on the side, and it's doing different render engines. That's what I'm looking for, the render engine. So right now, the render engine we're using is called EV. And so if we render a still frame, that's what it looks like. But if we go in and we say cycles, and then we render it again, see how it does these little dots? Because what it's doing is it's calculating the reflection of the light. And thus you can get much more realistic lighting and whatnot using that. Look at the difference, all right? So we're going to do this one right there. And then we're going to go back over here. We're going to go back to this one, and we're going to say render. And then that's the difference. See, look at the, see how there's nothing here? Down here at the bottom. Again, render cycles, render image. See that light reflection? That makes a difference. Of course, it does take more time to render that out. But, of course, the end result is much better. So that was about 9 seconds. And if I rendered the other one, like this, that'd take about half a second. And you're like, well, Kismet, why do you use one and the other? Now, when you're testing your animation on how your animation is going to look, you'd want to do this one first. Do it in the cheapest resource one you can. So Eevee is very good. So you can test it out that way. Now, also in here is where I'm going to save all of this stuff. As well, which is right here. There we go. So it's RGB, PNG. Oh, it's in the temp folder. That's where it's going. Yeah, there it is, temp folder. Let me go ahead and put this in my fun detected emote. We're going to create a new folder. Annie Basics. There we go. And accept. All right, there we go. Now when we go to render it, we'll know exactly where all those frames are going. Render animation, and again, we're going to render it in EV format. Go. I just want to show you that it makes 90 frames. Or 90 photos is what it's doing right there. All right, there we go. Now, back over here. There they are. There's all 90 of them like that. Let's view it as details. So it's now got 90 photos, and it's actually named them in a row. Now, of course, mine's showing Photoshop. That's why I went to Photoshop. Because now you can take that animation, and you can open it in Photoshop. In here. There we go. And I would select number 1. Now, you have different formats you can do, including an image sequence. So we're going to say image sequence. We'll say number 1. We'll say open. How many frames per second? This particular one is 30 frames per second. Hit OK. And then now you actually have an animation in Photoshop. You're like, no way. Oh, yeah. Let's go ahead and pull up the timeline for Photoshop. And you've now converted that into individual photos. You rendered it into individual photos, and those individual photos are now recombined again in Photoshop. And there you go. Now, of course, you can apply things to this if you want. You can go in and say, hey, you know what? I want to do like a crazy thing here. Let's see. Let's just do, say, bevel and emboss. And do something really funky chicken here. Contour. Put some things in there. Put some glows on that sucker. Some satin. Again, you can just go crazy, right? Okay, a little too crazy. Too many patterns. Drop shadows. All right. Take all that out of there. So you can actually modify it in here as well in Photoshop. Now, this is why sometimes you don't want a background. And the background is what's known as your alpha channel. So you actually can make an alpha channel while you're doing it, and it will only have these objects as opposed to having the plane and then the background there as well. And we can get into alpha channels probably next time. It's a bit more advanced. But you can see that I can bring it into Photoshop and I can make it into an animation. Now, I can just go in and say save as, or actually, let's go export, probably better. Export, save for web legacy. And of course, this is going to be a very, very large GIF animation. Probably should have shrunk it down a little bit. But it's going to calculate it. Wow, even my machine takes a while to calculate it. Let's cancel that. We definitely want to make this smaller. We're going to make a GIF animation. You don't want it to be that big. Let's say 720. Oh, actually, this should be 720. Actually, even more. Let's go 360. Shrink that down a little bit. Okay, there we go. Now we can go ahead and try to export it. Now, this is going to be a very big animation, so keep that in mind. The more frames that you make it do, the longer it's going to take. We're going to shrink that down a little bit. It's still going to take a while. Still going to take a bit. Now, I'm just going to hit original over here, so I don't have to wait for it to do the optimize. It's going to create a color palette of the colors that are in there. Notice only 256 colors because it's a GIF animation. We've also got it where it's selective colors, so it's going to pick the most optimum colors in there. It's also on looping forever. And then we're going to hit save. And we're going to save that, I don't know, somewhere in here. A bunch of games in there, too. That's kind of awkward thing. Let's just call it Untitled 1 because, you know, that's how we roll. And then we're going to go into Documents. Oh, boy, where did it go? I think it went into that home thing. Hold on. There's like this home thing it went into. PC is so awkward in the way they do things. All right, let's do this again. I got my thing up there for a second while I figure out why that dialog box is so weird. Yeah, that's a really weird dialog box. What documents is this? That's super awkward. There we go. All right. I just had to fix what directory it was going into so we can find it. Okay, Documents, GigaShare, Untitled. Now, if I double-click on it, it's going to say, where do I want to open this? Now, if you have a GIF animation, probably the best thing to do is choose an app from my PC. Oh, God, I got to go do all that. We could actually just get out of there and drag this onto here. Oh, we got to drag it into the thing. On PC, you have to drag it into the thing. There we go. So now it's a GIF animation. So we made an animation in Blender. We rendered out all the frames. Make sure you know where it's rendering using that sidebar over there. Then we took it, we put it into Photoshop. Then we exported it as a GIF. Now, we can also render it out in different formats as well. But usually something like Photoshop is the catalyst for turning that into a GIF or turning that into stuff. So now you have unlimited power, everybody. You can make your basic models, which I showed you last time. You can animate those models, and now you can take them, save them out for Photoshop, and then make GIFs out of them, or you can make movies out of them, whatever you want to do. Now, if I was going to make a movie out of it, I would use a totally different program. I would use a editing program like this one. It's going to come up here in a second. Come on. Now, the interesting thing is I usually use Final Cut Pro, but I've been starting to use DaVinci Resolve. This is another free program. Oh, yeah, it's doing cutdowns. There's another free program. We'll skip that update for right now. So what we want to do is we want to import some media over here. We'll go to our Documents, GigaShare, and we want to go ahead. Oh, no, we want to go to 3D graphics. There we go, because we want to get our originals. emote animation basics #1 here, and open that file. Now see what happened? It only opened the one file. It only opened the one thing, so it's actually not converting it. So what we need to do is we need to say, oh wait, this thing is basically an animated object. Now, of course, we already fixed it in Photoshop and did it in there. But if you have a program like this, especially Final Cut Pro, it will go in and allow you to bring it in as a sequence. And you can see over here that it's not giving me any other objects in here. And so basically what we could do is utilize the one that we had before from Photoshop and just drag that into the timeline here. And then that one is actually already set because we've already combined it back again into a GIF animation. Now, GIF animation, you're going to lose a lot of quality. So if you did want to bring it in, you'd want to bring it in so it brought in all of the high-level quality frames, right? The 1920 by 1080, because when you save it as a GIF, the quality goes way down. And, of course, it's also smaller and so on. So you definitely want to have that at full size. So you can also bring it in. I'm not going to get too much into editing. I'm just showing you that you can bring this stuff in afterwards into the editing program and then also overlap other things to it, right? Like say you want to add some titles. We could say, you know, row light third right there, up here. And then we could say, actually this could be way smaller. There we go. And there we go. So now we have a thing. We could say, you know, my spin animation or whatever. So you can then edit it together. And this is called compositing as well. When you composite a bunch of objects together. When you're doing animation, there's a whole bunch of people in a whole bunch of different processes. So you got your modeling people, you got your lighting people, you got your animation people. There are people who do very specific specialties along the way. And then, of course, they layer all those things together. Like somebody might do the background, somebody might be doing a foreground object, other objects that are doing things. And then they're putting it all together. Maybe they might add some fog effect or fire or lightning or whatever, add those effects to it as well. And then you have those different compositing. Now, in your mind, you have to know what you are going to do all in the 3D program and what you're going to do in different pieces and then put all those pieces together in your video editor, right? So that's another concept, very important to know, all right? So again, teaching you more concepts than specifically the actual program itself. So very, very important to know when you're doing the 3D animation, right? Am I going to just do this or am I going to do the ball separate and do the thing separate? Though I wouldn't do that. I would do them both together so you can do the interaction. But maybe there's something else going on in the background, right? Maybe there's a horse riding by. So I might do the horse separate and then just composite that together, right? Very, very cool way of thinking it all the way to the end product, right? So you know how to start, you know how to do the animation, you know how to save it out, and you know how to end up at the end product. And that's it, everybody. That's it. You're an animator now. Congrats. Congrats. You know the basics. You know the basics of everything that you need to know to get started in animation. And that's it for this stream. And man, we hit it right on the dot, didn't we? We hit it right on the dot. I had that well-timed, didn't I? That's actually probably one of my most well-timed streams ever. So let's go ahead and get on the Kismet Love Train, and we're going to roll out of here. Let's go. All right, everybody. Now, again, that was a bonus stream talking about 3D animation. Remember, this will be on VOD, so if you did miss it, it'll instantly go up onto YouTube, instantly go up onto all the other stuff like Twitch and so on. So you can watch it back. Thanks to all my patrons right down there at the bottom. Thanks to all the people who are eventually going to scroll up over here as well. Now, you can help out the stream, everybody. If you enjoy these type of streams, you want to encourage me to do more, you can go ahead and check out the schedule. Hey, thank you for the tips tonight. You're welcome. Thanks for hanging out, Electros. Again, if you missed any part of this presentation, you can see it, this video, you can see it on those platforms. Now, of course, we did Blender tonight, and then tomorrow we're going to do some Alpha 21 7 Days to Die. We got a special mod, the Wasteland Tycoon mod, by one of the people in my community, Unforgiven. I still haven't reset the server yet. I didn't have enough time today, but I'm going to try to do it tomorrow and see if we can have it ready for tomorrow night. So we'll see how it goes. And, of course, my schedule is going to be pretty much the same next week. Again, hope you all had a great Turkey Day as well. Then also right over here, we've got youtube.com/KismetBP is, of course, my YouTube channel. If you're watching on Twitch, pop on over there, hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube now or in the future, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, hit the like button, especially leave a comment. Let's put Time Master as the end of this video. So if I see some Time Masters there, I know that you guys made it all the way to the end of this video. So also check out the Twitter, twitter.com/KismetBP. You can go over there, hit the follow button. The more you guys hit the follow button, you hit the bell, and you leave comments and all of that, the more giveaways and other cool things I get to do here on stream. So keep that in mind, all right? And then, of course, discord.gg. You can check that out, /Kismet, as well as kismet.gg, my Discord and my website. And, of course, the most important thing, you like these videos or other videos that I do, go over to patreon.com/Kismet. And show your support over there, all right? So that just inspires me to do more videos and do more 3D animation stuff and more special downloads of my 30 years of knowledge of computers and graphics and all that other fun stuff. So, all right, there we go. And let's go ahead and shower you guys with a bunch of love in the chat. There you go. And again, if you want to follow along, you can find this video on YouTube. Now, if you are watching this video in the future on YouTube, remember that you can also, there'll be a little circle pop up there. You can click that center circle to hit subscribe, and there'll be another video over there for you to watch as well. So thanks for being here, everybody, and we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.
Hi, this is Norbert. Thanks for watching. This is the sky.